Hi, I'm Cortavius. It is time to beat Fire Knight 10. Let's get into it. All right, so Fire Knight 10. Why do I care? I guess is probably the first question, other than, hey, if it's the goal is to beat everything in the game. But I've only been running Fire Knight Hard 1 since, I guess, since Fire Knight Hard came out. I just put a team of champs in there that I had been using that could just beat it and didn't change any builds. I kept looking at the teams that were doing Fire Knight Hard 10, and they were using like 360 speed cardials, and I was like, I'm not building that much on that one dungeon. And they kept putting champs out that were better. Creo did, Neldor, Yakaro was great at it, and I kept thinking, oh, if I hold out, they'll make it easier. They'll make it easier. Well, missions came out for these latest set of missions, so we can get Marios the Gallant, and they have Fire Knight Hard 10 as one of the missions you got to beat. And real early in these first 60, they had Fire Knight Hard 3 in there. Um, So I actually looked at the optimizer and found a team I had that actually with champs I already built and it could beat Fire Knight Hard 3. So that got me through those missions. So I'm into the second set. Um, and I'm basically just stage gated by these Iron Twins affinities. So I'm getting through them as I can get through them. But I know I'm going to have to beat Fire Knight Hard 10. And actually this set of second missions here, you have to beat Fire Knight Hard 5 and Fire Knight Hard 7. I think it's like 20 times to do that. And then in the third set is when Fire Knight 10 will come up. So, all right, it's time to build one. So I've been keeping an eye on them, on what teams I could get. And what I guess wanted to show in this video is what teams did I look at? How did I choose the team that I chose? Why did I choose it? And then I'm going to go through and show the build stats. And I've actually not run Fire Knight Hard 10, so maybe you never see this if the team doesn't work. But I'm assuming if you're watching this, things must have gone well or I fixed the team. So first thing I want to do is walk through the thought process of how did I pick a team? And there are chapters below, so if you want to skip stuff, feel free to go to another chapter if there's something you're more interested in. But let me turn off the game here and put on Excel. So I'll try and make this brief, but just showing you some of the teams that I considered. I went into the team optimizer and just looked for teams that beat Fire Knight Hard 10, and it's going to pick teams that with champs you have, and I pay for the subscription version, whatever the cheapest premium option is. I love the fact that it gives me the builds of the teams, which I think is invaluable for me. I love that it shows me the ratings on the gear, and honestly, I feel like Hell Hades and his team do a lot for the community. So I feel like I'm giving back a little bit. I realize they're pretty much a company at this point, but I still feel fine. I feel good paying the premium, low premium membership for them. To be honest, it's cheap. But I looked at a team like this, for example. It only had 2 runs, so that scared me. And I use Helicath and Iron Twins, so I had to look at which champs do I use somewhere else. Other than that, I thought I could do it, but I wasn't a big fan, I guess, of using Helicath again, or I'd have to build my second Helicath. And I think the 2 runs kind of scared me off too. And then if I looked at a team like this middle one, they've got Cardial in there at 295 speed, which is doable. But they're using a 6-star Awakened Yakaro. And I didn't know if that 6-star Awaken made a difference in their comp working. It was 31-1, so it's 97% success, which is pretty good. I mean, I think it can, any run can fail, at this level of Fire Knight. And it also had a Nude and Relentless, and I didn't know if I had a good enough Relentless build, and I didn't know if that made a difference. So that kind of scared me off that comp. And then I'm going to skip that one because I'm going to come back to that. And then there was this one with Cardial and Valk. Cardial at 296, Valk at 308. But then I do use Tomb Lord elsewhere, and I'd have to put him in a shield set versus letting him be in regen like I have him in. Um, and the newts are kind of built, so I could do that one. It was 34 and 1, so it was doable, but I didn't like that as much as some of the others. And then I did look at a couple of these I just ruled out quickly. Some of these builds were just too hard to do. I thought a 268 speed newt with a 288, 270, and a 334 cardial. I use cardial in my Hydra teams, and I got him built as a nuker. So I'd have to rebuild him. They've got him with high resist, 407 resist with 334 speed. I'd have to rebuild card. I'd have to either not use cardial and Hydra, or I'd have to rebuild them each time I want to run Fire Knight. So I didn't like that team. And then this one used Raz, who's on my Razelvarg is on my clan boss team. So, and they had a 5-star awakened Blazar, which I don't have him 5-star awakened, so I worried that that would mess me up. So just the thought process, I guess, of how I looked at teams that I looked at, and then I ended up picking this team by looking at the optimizer settings of which teams I saw working. I'm sorry, this is the one. Sorry for jumping around there. So I saw this team with Padraig, Fatman, Yakarl, and 2 newts. The speeds at 285, 259, 256, 251, and 302. And I did put some of my live arena bonuses into speed on Fire Knight. I'll show you that. So I can get the builds to actually be lower than that. In Grand Oak, you don't need anything but speed, really. So, and then make them tanky. So that speed's easier to get to since you don't need other stats. And I figured I could get these guys to this level. And their Yakar only had 162 crit damage. That's not that bad. You do have to get accuracy and speed on him, so it's tough to get him into a good nuker build unless you have good gear. But 160 crit damage, so there's nothing in this build that looked crazy. So I thought, it only had 8 victories, but it was 100%. So just stepping back, let's go back to the game. My thought process there is I looked for champs with builds that could be used in other content or were unique to this team. So if I had to put them in a unique build, but this is the only place I'm going to use them, that's good for me. Or if the 2 newts in this comp, they're the same builds I could use in other content. So I was good with that. I looked for no blessings or blessings I could get to and builds I could build, not crazy fast teams. I looked for reasonable team speeds because, yeah, I could get faster, but I don't want a lot of my best speed gear going into a Fire Knight run. I'd rather have that gear on champs I'm using in Arena or Hydra. So that was important to me. And I wanted a team that was fast enough to farm, but not crazy fast that I had to use my best gear again. So that was my thought process on how did I pick the team that I wanted. I think it's worth then showing you what I did in Arena, or in not the tavern, sorry, the Great Hall. I did go in and put a bunch of bonuses to get a plus 16 speed in Fire Knight, so that will be reflected in the builds that I got to when I show you the builds. But I think that was helpful. I still have some medals to spend, but I wanted to save those for missions because you have to use some of those in missions. Other than that, while we're here, the only other place I invest in is really Hydra. So I need to do more live arena so I can build more of these bonuses up. But I do have speed there. So let's go in. I have been doing my 3 battles a day for my advanced quests. So as I said, I hadn't gotten past 3. I took this team and they've done 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 all on auto. So that's the team I'm using. It's Padraig, it's the Frock and the Fat, Yakarl, and 2 newts. I've never run 10 yet. So you can see we haven't done 10. And a couple of these champs aren't even booked. So I don't have the comp working the way it's supposed to, but I'm going to do the run just to see, does it work unbooked? That would be interesting to learn. Otherwise, I might go book these champs. So I'm just going to run this and let's see if it works. If it does, I'll go show you the builds and what we did with it. And I'll talk you a little bit through what they're doing here. I'll show you the team settings if this run works. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't care. Um, but I do have them set up to use certain abilities on the first two waves, and then not use those abilities in wave two so that they're available for the boss, which is important. Well, it does work really well because your Carl can freeze, and both the newts reduce turn meter on these waves. So far, coming up to 10, the waves really haven't taken a turn. Actually, look at this wave. No one in this wave took a turn on the enemies. So it looks really safe because we don't even get hit there. And that's unbooked for your, I think your Carl and Padraig. I'll check for sure when we get to the builds. We really want your Carl to get his AoE and freeze everybody. I do wish the newts would spread their attacks on auto so that they reduce the turn meter of everybody. But unfortunately, they keep attacking the same people, and they never actually do that. Well, we took a hit, but no damage. They stunned my your Carl, who needs to put the AoE out there. That's unfortunate. So we got hit again, but no damage. We really need our boy Carl to get in the game here. Okay, he's frozen. We've got two of the two DPSs frozen. Riho can actually hit, so you got to be careful with Riho here. Well, that looked pretty comfortable. We did take hits there. Maybe that's because my champs aren't booked. But if the Fire Knight doesn't take a turn, we're good. Now we should get the ally attack from Padraig. He opens with that. 20 turns on that shield. That's crazy. Carl goes in there. We get triple hitters. Triple hitter, and now we should get another ally attack, which should bring the shield down. We reduce the turn meter. Really need the newts to get back in there though. Alright, newts got in. So we took the turn meter down. Second newt should do the same thing. Alright. I think we're going to be good now, right? Because the newts should keep going. We don't have decreased speed on this team, which would really help. And we're at 242 already, so it's not looking too fast, is it? But the newts, I think, will take their blessed bashes again. I didn't turn that off. And we should get ally attacks back again, which will help. Alright, there's the ally attacks, which will bring more A1s. And then I should allow the newts to do the blessed bash. Yeah, there we go. That helps. Come on, kill him. I'm feeling pretty good about this run. Soul Reap. Alright, so that is Fire Knight 10, the first time I've ever run it. 321 I'm happy with. Yeah, it could be faster, but for champs I don't use elsewhere. I use the two nudes, but they're in builds I could use anywhere. And the other three champs I don't use anywhere. So a dedicated dungeon I can farm, I can run it overnight. And 321, I can run that overnight and get a lot of runs in. I'm pretty good with that. So actually I might keep that piece. So it works. So let's take a look at the team. First thing I'll do is check out I'll show you the team settings I used. So Padraig, as I said, on round one, he's going to use his ally attack, right? That's the fill. He's doing his turn meter fill, and his increased speed, and then I shut that off. So he is free to use his ally attack in round one when he needs it. Then in round two, I turn off the ally attack because that has to be available for round three. And in round three, he's going to prioritize the ally attack whenever it comes up. Frockin' the Fat, He is free to do what he wants in round 1 because he'll get his skills back. I turn off the beatdown in round 2 so that that's available, so he can prioritize that in round 3. And I turn off the A2 for the boss because all it does is put an HP burn and a poison. You hope the boss never takes a turn, so that a skill would be useless. Yakarl on round 1, he's going to open up with his AoE freeze and then not use it again so he doesn't burn it before we go to round 2, where he's going to prioritize the freeze. And then in round 3, I turn off the A3 because it's not as helpful as him using his A1 and his A2. So basically he's going to put a decreased speed, which I don't remember seeing, but maybe he did, and the freeze, and he's got freeze on A1. And for this boss, obviously the freeze is what decreases the turn meter. Normal Fire Knight, you can reduce turn meter. Hard Fire Knight, you can't reduce turn meter unless you do it through a freeze. So he brings the freeze, and he's got a 2-hitter on the A1. And at the boss, that hitter and the freezes help reduce the turn meter. So he's really helpful there. And then the 2 newts have the exact same team settings, so I'll just show you one of them. Round 1, they do open with their AoE, decrease attack, and weaken, and then doesn't use it again. And then round 2, I prioritize that. I turn off the Blessed Bash because I want to make sure it's available for round 3. And then at the start of round 3, they're going to open up with the Blessed Bash because it has a 3-hitter on it. So you're trying to take that shield down. And then I turn off the A2 because I want them to use the A1 triple hitter with a turn meter decrease on it with freeze. As often as they're either going to use that A1 or they're going to do their big hit. So those are the settings. You could have seen stats here. It's actually worth checking these out because these include the 16 speed. So when I go to the builds, they will be 16 less than what you see here. So I do have Padraig at 311. If I go back to that Excel, the comp worked with him at 302. So he doesn't need to be 311. I just got lucky with my glyphs. So he only has to be he was 302 in the build I followed. I don't know if he has to be 302, but he doesn't need to be 311. And then none of these other stats matter. It's really just survivability, which is helpful, and speed. So I told the optimizer, give me a build for EHP, and I put speed on there. And then Farrakhan's at 261 speed. He was 251 in the comp I followed. So, and he has to be, the boss's speed is 250. So he has to be above 250. So he can be 251. I don't think there's any benefit to him being 261. The glyphs landed well for me. So he was at 261. The build I targeted was 251. And then I just built survivability. If you can get crit rate and damage in there, he could do more damage, but I just didn't care. And you have to have 350 accuracy on stage 10. So I have him at 357 accuracy because I do want him to land his debuffs. Yakarl is 260 speed. So if you don't have the Fire Knight bonuses, then you've got to build to speed once again. I think this just needs to be above 250. He was 256 in the comp I followed. I think as long as he's above 250, the 250 to 260 wouldn't matter. And I just went for attack and crit damage. So I tried to build a Yakarl that could clear waves faster and do more damage. And he has to land his debuffs because he's relying on him to use that freeze skill on the boss. So 350 accuracy important on Yakarl. Newt, number 1, he's at 274 speed. The 2 newts I was using were 259 and 285. Once again, I don't know that it matters as long as they're above 251. But I also want to use these newts in Hydra and elsewhere. So I did try to go for more speed if I could get it. The crit damage and crit rate are key. They've got to hit those Blessed Bashes, and he has to have the accuracy to land. So my accuracy is higher because I can use him in other content too, but they have to have 350 accuracy for this dungeon. The second newt's at 264, so he was 274, he's 264. Once again, crit damage and over 350 accuracy. This newt I built just for this dungeon, so I did just hit the 375. I didn't get as much as the other one. So if I had to choose choose a nut to, in content, I'd probably go with the higher accuracy if I was using one, but he does have enough accuracy, I think, that I can use him in more places. So those, I wanted to show you the stats here because these show my Fire Knight speed bonuses. So Padraig was the fastest. So when we get to the boss, he's going to, let's go to round 3. He's going to open up with the spores, and that gives us an all ally attack on the boss. Then then the next two that are going to go are the 274 Newt and the 264 Newt, and they're both doing Blessed Bash. So Padraig opens up, and we all go in with an ally attack. Then the two Newts come in with their triple hitters, and by having Blessed Bash first, it puts that skill on cooldown. So the next 2 turns they take, they're going to use their A1s, which reduces the boss's turn meter. So that is important because you could have opened up with the A1 being a triple hitter, but then the Blessed Bash would be open and the boss takes a turn. So it's important to have these guys go fast before the Fracken, and it's also important that they have the Blessed Bash on cooldown after that first turn. That's why it is opened with Blessed Bash. And then Fracken is the slowest champ on the team, so when we get to the boss, when he comes in with his ally attack, it'll end up bringing the Newts in as the part of the ally attack, and they will end up reducing the turn meter with their A1s on Fracken's ally attack when that shield goes down, which gives us the time to cycle back and use our skills again. So there is thought process to the speeds on these champs relative to each other. It doesn't matter as much for the Yakarls and the Newt's speeds relative to each other, but I do have Padraig fastest and I have Fracken slowest on the team. I do think it works better that way. But let's now go to the builds, and I can show you the team stats. Actually, I can get it. No. So recently used. So gear, I just really got whatever the optimizer gave me. So I wasn't targeting sets. I ended up with 2 sets of perception and 2 broken sets, and that got what I needed from it. I won't show you the stats because I just showed you the team optimizer. As I said, he's unbooked. So I don't have any of the skills booked on Yakarl, and that run went fine, and it didn't look like we were in any trouble. So I'll run it, a bunch of times and see if it works, but more often, but I didn't see us in trouble at all on that one. I did have him in Soul Reap. I already had that blessing on him, so I just left it. And it looked like it killed the boss at the end, so it's helpful. Phantom Touch probably isn't a bad idea for hits on the shield, but I just don't feel like that's useful anywhere else. But I can now use him in Curse City with this build, so I like it better with Soul Reap. Probably the next CVC, I'll go ahead and book him, just because I think he can be useful in other content. Masteries, I did get War Master on him because that's better for this boss, and I did pick up Whirlwind of Death to get more speed when he kills enemies, which he does, so that definitely bumps the speed up from what you saw. And then I went Damage Masteries. I picked up some extra accuracy on him and Laura Steel. I just didn't pick the extra masteries yet because I kind of wanted to see how this went without him and to see which masteries might be more impactful for me, but I'll fill those in. I've got the scrolls, so I did get all his masteries. And then Newt is in whatever the optimizer got for me again, so once again, double perception, so he's not in a lethal savage, which would be nice for damage, but it might have cleared the waves faster, it might have cleared the boss faster, but it was for me to get the speed and the accuracy. I'm kind of happy leaving those sets on my arena nukers. So he is fully booked. He has Brimstone. Brimstone doesn't do anything on the boss because he doesn't take a turn. So this blessing's more for other content. It doesn't really help here. And then those are his masteries. I do have him in flawless execution, I guess this was my first Newt. I needed more crit damage on him. He would be better in Giant Slayer for this content, for most content actually. So once you can get enough damage on your Newt, you should switch to Giant Slayer. I think I had picked this because I wanted damage. He does have Life Drinker to pick up more healing and then damage-based masteries. And I did go the route to get accuracy, Evil Eye, Master Hexer to extend any debuffs he casts, and Laura Steel. And then the second Newt, so he's just in a couple protection sets, which gives me speed, a couple speed sets, which give me speed. And I do have a couple Slayer on him, which does give me crit rate and crit damage, which is helpful. So I do have a couple of those on there. And I do, with 3 of these, I do get the triple protection. So I'm getting 12 plus 12 speed from having 3 protection sets on Newt as well. He is fully booked. He has Phantom Touch. This is the one I built for this dungeon, so I put Phantom Touch on him because he can get more hits on the shield. He does hit it 3 times, although I think it caps at 1 per turn, so it's probably just 1 Phantom Touch for each turn. And then for masteries, I did go to Giant Slayer on him, and I did pick up Life Drinker for some healing as well, and then I do have Cycle of Violence, so maybe he can get his Blessed Bats back faster. Damage-based masteries otherwise, and I did go defense tree on him because I didn't need the accuracy. So I got defense. I do have blast proof, so he takes less AoE damage, which I guess he never got hit by the boss, but I didn't know it at the time I built him. I do like Resurgent, so if he did get a decreased speed or a decreased attack on him or something, he's got a chance to strip it. And then Delay Death is just a nice mastery to have on anybody. So if he hits from the same enemy, he's going to reduce it. And then I put Retribution, just so if he does get attacked, he's got a chance to counter, which even in the waves, his A1's going to reduce their turn meter. So that can be helpful. For the boss, thankfully, we never got hit, but I was thinking he could take hits. He could take the shield down if he got hit. So that's his masteries. And then Fat Man, he is in a shield set. I did that just because it gave us some more protection, and you did see we did get hit on that second wave, so the shield set could have been helpful there. If you have enough stats on your team, it probably isn't important, but I put it on there just because it was in the comp I follow, and I thought maybe it mattered. As I look at the run, I think it was helpful in that second wave. I don't know that it made the difference though, so I don't think it really matters for this. And then a perception set to get the accuracy I needed on him. So his skills are fully booked. He does have Phantom Touch for hits on the shield. And for masteries, I do have him in War Master, Life Drinker again. And then I did pick up Steadfast to get him some HP. I did pick up a couple accuracy stats. I've got Rapid Response for turn meter if a buff expires. I got Cycle of Magic to get a cooldown. And once again, Master Hexer and Sniper's, I think, important on him because his A1 doesn't have a full chance left to decrease defense, so I can pick up Sniper on him. So those are the masteries. And then Padraig. He's in a Divine Speed, a Resilience, and also a Stone Skin. So he's got a mishmash of sets on him. Does have a Blood Shield ring. I don't know that really made a difference for him, but he doesn't really do any damage to really make much of a shield out of it. But he's sitting there in speed boots, HP, and defense percent, bottom row. His skills are unbooked, so booking him would be great, because then his turn meter fill goes to a 3-turn cooldown and removes the debuffs and places increased speed, and his ally attack would go down to a 4-turn cooldown. So that would help at the boss. So I think I will definitely book this in CVC just because getting that turn down probably means he gets back to the ally attack faster when we're at the boss and this run goes faster. So I will book these just to speed up the run. But it is nice to see the unbooked Padraig and unbooked Yakarl can do Fire Knight 10. So I thought that's why I wanted to run it and record this before I booked them, because I thought it would be cool to see if it worked, which it did. I never even did the other 2 trees yet, because I was curious to see if I needed to get War Master on him, or if I could go defense tree to keep him more alive. But it didn't matter. He didn't. he wasn't. I didn't see him being close to dying. I did pick up the extra HP and shield and healing and shield masteries, and then I did cycle of magic. I did get Lore of Steel, and I did get lasting gifts to extend the duration of the buffs he casts. So I thought these masteries were really good for him. Um, I still haven't decided which one of those two trees I want to go down yet, but nice to see unbooked and partially mastered. He gets the job done. So that was the thought process of who I used. Why did I choose this team? Uh, and showed you the stage 10 run. We went through build, skills, masteries, and team settings and talked about why the comp works. So that is my new Fire Knight 10 team. So I am going to go give it some runs and make sure I don't learn anything else from it. But I mean, I'm really happy to actually to build a team that I can use and farm. You know, the fact that I made it this long. But honestly, I guess I pulled the second Newt recently, and I did the fusion to get Padraig or the Titan event or whatever he was in to pick him up, the guaranteed or whatever he was. Anyway, so I picked him up. So that allowed me really to build a team that you know, 2 months ago I wouldn't have been able to build. So I think holding out to build a Fire Knight 10 team, I got to a team that I thought was much more reasonable on speeds and builds. So I don't know everybody have those same champs. So I did show you some of the other teams that I saw successful out there. The real concept here is 2 ally attackers. So these 2 are swappable for other ally attackers. I could use my Cardinal if I wanted to. And then Nelder and Creodin could certainly, you know, fit in for a Newt or your Carl. So I think these 3 are just 3 freeze-based turn meter reducers, and the Newts can speed up the run. So I don't see this team working without these 3 being like Neldor, Creodin, Yakarl, or Newt. So any of those would, I think, fit in these spots. But that's the concept of why this particular team works. Hopefully that helps. If this type of content is useful for you, I would definitely appreciate the sub and like the video if you can. Appreciate it. Thank you.